point to me in a very powerful way.
And they
I thought
employed
it
a
was right.
significant employer without identifying them
Yes, significant employer.
of hundreds of jobs?
Yep.
Can I just go to the issue of Ugg boots, which we explored, which is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
No, it's a
you
serious
have
matter.
Eddie Oyger of Australian Leather, who's being sued
Yes.
by Deckers in the United States for allegedly selling Ugg boots into the US because they say they own the trademark and patent
Yes.
the word Ugg, which I think most would agree is a quintessentially Australian term. I asked questions on this at the last estimates. You have received a complaint from Mr Oyger and Australian Leather about the use of the word Ugg,
Yes.
Ugg Australia, the brand name Ugg Australia owned by Deckers. You've also advised me that the ACCC formed the view that Deckers' use of the brand Ugg Australia was arguably misleading, as none of their Ugg boots are made in Australia. They're either made in China or Vietnam. You agree with that proposition?
Mm-hmm.
And none of Deckers' Ugg boots have been made in Australia for the last 10 years, as I understand it. Is that your understanding as well?
Look, I'm a little bit hazy. I'm going to pass.
That's
give you
okay,
the best
but I don't want to
answers
get bogged
from
down
Mr.
that. But
Gregson.
if you take the proposition that it's been a number of years since Ugg Australia boots have been made in Australia, I'm trying to understand why is it that the ACCC did not take legal action against a large multinational corporation which has been essentially misleading Australian consumers about the origins of its Ugg boots over 10 years. And there's a reasonable expectation that if you're a consumer, you see something called Ugg Australia, you'd assume that it's made in Australia.
I'll get Mr Gregson to give you the best answer, Senator.
Senator Scott Gregson, Executive General Manager of the Enforcement Division. We had a similar discussion, I think, on the last occasion, and whether I was succinct or helpful enough. We need to make decisions about which matters we proceed with full investigations and enforcement action. In this instance, we hadn't found a conclusive view that the conduct was misleading. As you rightly point out, we articulated that we thought it was arguable. We would have had to continue that investigation. What influenced us in deciding to not pursue the matter further was the fact that the company, Deckers Australia, was going through a rebrand to remove the reference to Australian in their
Mr
name.
Gregson, I'm sorry, I'm not being abrupt. Very short of time. You acknowledge that Australian consumers have been misled?
No, Senator.
You don't think they've been misled?
Senator, we have to operate in a legal framework. We've been very clear with our position that we thought it was an arguable position. We would need to continue our investigation to form a conclusive view that it was misleading.
So if a consumer is sold a pair of Ugg Australia boots with labelling, with signs of Australiana and the like, you reckon and it's made in China, you don't think they've been misled?
Oh, no, Senator. No, don't put words in my mouth, Senator.
No, I didn't mean to. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, no, Senator. We've made it very clear that we've considered this matter over a number of years. We've evolved our position. We ultimately formed the view that it was arguable, particularly in those circumstances that you mentioned. So in combination with the way in which it's presented, in combination with other representations. But we have to be very careful as a regulator that we don't come to forums like this and indicate conclusive views that conduct is misleading.
Well, you're still investigating the issue of Deckers, notwithstanding that they've now changed their branding. They've made a lot of money out of Australian consumers for a number of years. There's an Australian Ugg boot industry that cannot export to other countries without fear of being sued in multi-million-dollar court cases, not just Mr Oyger's company. Is the ACCC looking at any past contraventions in terms of Australian consumers being misled in relation to Ugg Australia boots?
Senator, no, not in relation to Ugg Australia, save for we continue to monitor the progress of their winding down of their branding, which is predominantly dealt with now. But, Senator, as Mr Sims mentioned, we take the issues seriously in this industry. We've taken past matters to court and we have further matters that are now on our investigation table in relation to Ugg boots with other manufacturers.
Okay, so can I just go to an assertion made on the Ugg Australia or Deckers website? They say that if you don't buy from Deckers, that it is, quote, terrorists, gangs and mobs sell counterfeits. They refer to them as counterfeits. And on their website they say one way to work out if it's a counterfeit Ugg boot, if it's made in Australia or New Zealand. Are they the sorts of claims that you would look at in terms of misleading consumers?
Senator, we had a similar discussion on the last occasion. I asked you if that was a direct quote from the website.
Yes.
Are you suggesting that's a direct quote from the website?
Yes, and the terrorist gangs and mobs sell counterfeits.
Yeah, I think there might be a broader reference there. That matter was raised with us. We formed the view that it was quite a broad representation and it wasn't making misrepresentations at that time. If there's further information there that Mr Oyger or yourself want to provide to us, we would happily look at it. But we looked at that at the same time and formed the view
Can I
that
just
there
ask,
wasn't
because of
misleading
time
conduct.
constraints, has the ACCC contacted any of its overseas counterparts, such as the US Federal Trade Commission, to raise its concern about Deckers potentially misleading conduct in overseas markets?
Senator, not to my direct knowledge. This is dating back a little while now, and we have quite regular contact with our counterparts, but I don't have a direct recollection of dealing with the FTC on this matter.
And finally from me, because I think there might be a minute or two for my colleague Senator Griff, Mr Royger has mortgaged his assets, has already spent $600,000 of his own money to fight this case in the US.
Yeah.
It's taken a very heavy toll. Is there any positive role of any assistance that the ACCC can give, given that if he wins this case, wins the counterclaim, it actually opens it up for Australian Ugg boot makers to be able to export Ugg boots to other countries, which they can't do at the moment without threat of legal action?
Senator, we have a lot of time for the situation that Mr Uyghur's in, and the issues that he's dealing with. They're not matters for the ACCC. These are a matter of intellectual property. We've done our best to refer Mr Uyghur to IP Australia. We understand that he's had contact with them. They're probably the best agency to assist him with IP issues.
I'll put some more questions on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
I think